what's the deal with the fault in counting calories and this concept of calories in, calories out? Hi, in case you're new to this channel, I'm Slick Nick, your personal keto bro. I'm not a doctor, a dietitian, a nutritionist, a personal trainer. I am literally just some random guy on the internet who has decided to make myself a science experiment in front of the whole world as I continue to slim down. I continue to get close to my goal of simply 17% body fat. I'm not aiming for a six-pack here, but I'm almost 40, and that's important that I reach that goal of 17% body fat and that I maintain it. But in the process of me doing this, I started a year ago, and I've lost easily over 25 pounds of fat at this point, and I've built muscle. And it started out with me officially finding success when I was counting calories. That's really what got things going for me. But it got to the point where I found it to be more efficient by adopting more of a keto model, to the point that in the last couple months now I've become strict keto and I won't consume more than 50 carbohydrates a day, 50 grams of carbohydrates a day. So do calories matter? This is how I feel, this is my perception. Yes. Calories matter, but perhaps they don't count as much as we think. Perhaps they don't have the value that we give them. So what I want to do is go through 7 things in my own experience that I have found proves that yes, calories, they matter, but they don't really count. That's how I feel comfortable saying it. And by the way, if you watch any YouTuber out there that talks about keto, you're gonna find that they have videos similar to mine. We could look at Dr. Berg, Thomas DeLauer, Autumn Bates. They're all gonna have videos like this. This is my version of it based on my own personal experience. So here we go. In no particular order. So the first way that ultimately finding fault in the concept of calories in, calories out, counting calories in an effort to lose fat. That's the theme here. Number one, what that concept does not take in consideration is fasting. When you fast, it's going to change how you digest and absorb and scientifically what you do with the food that you do consume. And this sounds like bro science, but check it out. You can eat a certain, let's say you eat 1,800 calories every day. 2 people, same body type, same body weight, everything, they both eat 1,800 calories in that same day. And they eat the exact same food. However, one person doesn't eat until 2 p.m. and they stop eating at 7. The other person starts that same meal, their first meal, let's say at 9 o'clock, or 7 o'clock, or 8 o'clock. When it's all said and done, over the course of time, the person who fasted is most likely to have less body fat based on that diet alone, because they've given their body time to digest the food from the previous day, and their insulin is not going to be spiked like the person who eats earlier in the day. So fasting is definitely going to have an effect on that based on what the window of when they're eating the food. Like, that totally matters. That's going to alter how the calories matter, the calories in and out, and the number of calories. It makes a difference. That's been my experience doing keto. Number 2, a problem with counting calories that I experienced personally is you can do everything right and then still be hungry. So there were days I was eating eggs, cottage cheese, tuna. I would plan it out where I had just my lean protein at the beginning of the day back before I went keto. And that would keep me full. It was good. But even after my dinner, I'd be getting ready for bed and I was still hungry. So ultimately that's something that led me to focusing more on fat and consuming twice as much of grams of fat as I do protein, because for me, fat is keeping me fuller than high lean protein, because lean protein spikes your insulin. So even whey protein, which has typically 0 carbohydrates and 0 grams of fat, and it's pure protein, spikes insulin more so than certain carbohydrates even. And I'm aware of that. Number 3, the next problem with counting calories. Often there's the wrong info on the label. You can't always trust how many grams of fat, protein, calories. You can't always trust it, and especially if you're looking at apps, a lot of time which are based on other people submitting information on there. So if you're looking at calories, it's an estimate. And what if it's 200 calories off? Or what if your serving is 200 calories? What if your spoon was a little bit too heaping or not enough? Well, that 100 to 200 calories over the course of time could equal multiple pounds through the course of the year if you consistently counted those calories and they were improperly. It's an imperfect science of counting, and ultimately that's going to have an effect long term. Number 4, different needs for different days. So for me specifically, last week was my first week of starting. I did 6 workouts. The first half, the first 3 were slow jam. There it is. Took a minute. Time under tension. And the second half of the week, I did HIIT, high interval intensity training, however you say it, I don't care. I just say TUT and HIIT, that's how I say it. What that did, compared to me doing the same basic workout in between, is it really took more of me, took more of my body. And I realized I was hungrier last week, every day, compared to before. I was needing more calories, despite having a good amount of fat and protein every day that I've been for weeks. I needed more. Whereas I've taken off the last couple of days to give my body some rest, and I'm not as hungry, and that's not a coincidence. So you have to be aware that whether it's based on your working out or not, there's gonna be certain reasons your body needs more nutrition on certain days and less on other days. Yes, it's largely related to how much exercise you do, or how much food you ate the day before, or what kind of food you ate the day before. So that's why when I'm eating until I'm satiated, but not looking at a number. Maybe I'm at 2,000 calories for the day, but I'm still hungry, and I'll eat a handful of nuts. And I'll know that on that specific day, it mattered more that I got that extra nutrition that I needed for that day, and I'm not gonna feel bad about it. Moving on to number 5. On a similar note, people have different bodies. They do. I'm 5'9". We can have another man my age, 5'9", but he can have a different body type, or his body reacts differently to how easily it processes fat, processes protein, processes carbohydrates. One of us could have a body that is more likely to store fat from the carbohydrates. Maybe he could get away with eating 100 carbs a day, and I'm definitely a person who can't. I mean, I really have to be strict about the 50 a day. So it's not universal as far as how our bodies needs. We all have different needs for our body and how we absorb nutrition ultimately. Number 6, hormones, which I sort of hinted at this earlier in this video, but our hormones based on our food is going to have an effect on it. So I talk about ghrelin, the hunger hormone. When you're not eating, that's going to basically take over to where you can't stand it and you just got to eat again. There's also leptin, the hormone that keeps you from being hungry, which is why when I break my fast, I have a salad with a bunch of mushrooms, because that has leptin in it. That's one of the things I do to break that fast, but also to ironically keep me from being hungry as I'm eating that first meal. So, and then your own hormones, whatever's going on. Again, that goes back to everyone's body's different. But the food we eat is going to invite certain hormones, which is going to make us less hungry or more hungry, and we have to consider that. Number 7, this is the last one. I came up with 7 of these. Number 7, the amount of protein and fat and nutrition digested in the specific meal itself. So my quote research, remember this is bro science, but my research has taught me how much complex protein can you actually digest in one meal. Most reports will show somewhere around 25 to 30 grams of complex protein that you can actually digest in a meal. So, for example, what happens if you eat a big old steak and it's more than 30 grams of protein in that steak? What happens to the rest if your body can't digest it? Well, ultimately, it'll pass through your system. It might end up being stored as fat, depending on how much you ate that day, your overall calories. But either way, there's only a certain amount of protein you can even process in a meal. So that's why for me, my personal goal is 75 grams of complex protein per day and double that number of grams for fat each day. That for me keeps me full, and I feel it's continuing to cause the fat to burn off my body and still get in a decent amount of protein, at least to reach my own goals. I'm not trying to have arms the size of bowling balls. That's not important to me. But the amount of food that you digest in a meal definitely matters. So for example, let's say you ate just the 2 meals, but you had all your protein in one meal. Well, not all of that protein will get digested and processed on your body the way it should or needs to. That's why I spread out my protein. I have 3 eggs at my break fast, and then I'll have some kind of meat at the end. And then I have my whey protein also that I'll have kind of an hour after I eat the meat. So I'm staggering that out. So all of these things matter. So calories in, calories out. Is it legit? Does it matter? Yes. It's the very basic model of how this whole thing works. But if we're religious about that and only focused on that, we're going to find that we could have done this a smarter, easier way. And I believe that when you combine counting calories with keto, it's ultimately the best combination. Ultimately, I pay more attention to the keto concept than I do the counting calories. That weighs more on for me in seeing how it works out here. But ultimately, what's going to alter how my body stores fat or burns fat? I'm going to tell you it's keto. Yes, I pay attention to the calories, and yes, I still count them. But I know that ultimately, I'm doing it more efficiently based on these 7 things. Your comments belong right here.